welcome to the NineSixFourTwo podcast. This is your host, Mr. Number 9.
And this is The Fool.
This is where me and The Fool give our
Unqualified and unrequested.
ramblings on the various issues in the world of sport.
Or something like that.
Hello everyone, welcome to our end of year / beginning of year review of the year that has been.
Yeah.
Last year we recorded it on literally the last day of the year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately we were all busy with various things that needed to get done. So finally things have settled down enough and we can get on with the podcast.
Yeah.
Thanks everyone for your patience and look forward to doing it. So we're going to review the year 2022. We're going to go through what we think were the biggest moments in terms of what's going to impact and go down in history for the sport.
Yeah.
For sports in general. Obviously it's with our biases. We've watched a group of sports and what we like. But yeah, these are the things we think are going to be things we keep talking about that happened this year.
Yeah.
Very important. So in first, we're going to go in, they're all important, nothing's less important than the other, but we're just going to pretend most important. So first of all, we're going to talk about the big kahuna event everybody was talking about for 10 years, 12 years, till it finally happened.
Yeah, exactly.
World Cup in Qatar 2022.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was a great tournament, football-wise. We had heaps of great, lots of highlights for us. Incredible to see people your children's age talk about their technical knowledge about football.
Oh no, they were well into it. They were very into the whole tournament, and yeah, they followed it quite well.
Absolutely. It's just interesting to me to see how, back in when I was Liam's age, I think I could barely just about follow football. It was in my head a very slow sport. I could stay up through test cricket matches more than I could watch football games.
Alright.
But he's well into it, knew all the players, knew what positions they were good in and where you could play them. And of course, Connor, who's a few years younger, just went, but in FIFA he's got a higher rating, so he's a better player. Which, it's inarguable at the end of the day.
Exactly.
That logic at all.
Exactly, can't really argue with the FIFA ratings.
FIFA ratings. So the tournament is great for people of all ages. Obviously it's very controversial off the field, but I think reflectively we have to think about which tournament hasn't been controversial off the field. We wrote about off-the-field issues about the last 2 World Cups.
Yeah, exactly.
Not much people highlighted this in the mainstream media. Obviously, the 2010 World Cup as well, but we weren't doing a podcast back then.
I was about to say, wasn't as though the 2010 one wasn't its own storm outside of it.
Yep, and the 2006 one and 2002 one. There's not been an uncontroversial World Cup, maybe ever.
It wouldn't be football if there wasn't controversy, right?
Yeah, and with off-the-field issues, I think Qatar has highlighted maybe a bit of hypocrisy about the way journalists cover it.
Yeah.
When it comes to different people hosting the tournament. That being said, the one, the only, Lionel Messi, he's clocked the game.
He's 100% achievements.
100% achievements. I think we can... Is he now got the second... Is he the second best international football player in terms of international career alone? If all we're counting is international career. We know we're never going to solve the GOAT debate. Everybody will have their good arguments for different players. But I think we all agreed the late Pelé was the GOAT of international football. No question whatsoever.
No question. Yeah.
And I think still is the case.
Yes, exactly.
3 World Cups. Final of a Copa America, the only one he got to play in. And obviously an incredible international record for one of the most storied international football teams in any sport. But Lionel Messi, is he second now, without a question?
Yeah, I think so. Oh, yeah, it's
Very,
hard to say otherwise.
yeah. I
Mm.
mean, Diego Maradona's won 2 World
He
Cups.
has, as I say, it was 2 World Cups for Maradona, so um,
2 World Cups for Ronaldo too, but Diego and Ronaldo were both didn't play in their first World Cup. They were basically young kids who were in the
yeah,
squad. Um, like Ronaldo described his as being like it was like going to university. It was finishing school. I got to hang out with the pros
nice.
because they thought that I was gonna be a good player for the team in the future. Which obviously, yeah,
Yeah,
he's a baby goat so, of Brazilian football. So there you go.
yeah. Someone was right. They said that. That was some good,
Yeah, and
good scouting.
obviously he's been to he's played in 2 finals, and
Yeah,
what a comeback!
yeah,
Um,
exactly.
to come back and win like when the way he did, like basically on at one point where he couldn't walk, and 6 months later he's lifting the World Cup trophy
Yeah,
and
no, it's crazy.
rightfully player of the tournament and
Yeah,
like scored double. Yeah, I mean, this the second best. There's a lot of thing. I think certain Kylian Mbappe might have a word to say to us as well.
yes, I can imagine in the future that, in the not very distant future, maybe in 4 years' time, in fact,
Yep,
Mr. Mbappe may be knocking on the door of these conversations and saying, "Hey, look at my collection. Look at me."
absolutely. But it's still an incredible achievement. Very happy to see such a great player who's given us such great moments throughout the years.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, win the trophy that just I think at least elevates him as the Argentina's GOAT.
yeah. Pretty much close to. I think
Yeah,
that was the memes, was him being lifted up to
yeah.
be alongside Maradona. So yeah, I think it's hard in Argentina to replace Maradona. Like that's he is beyond a lot of things, but Messi is pretty much there now. So
Yeah, absolutely. But that was our big thing. The World Cup, Messi, that whole tournament, and a bunch of other things. I think that tournament has revolutionized a lot of the ways we watch sport as well. I
yeah,
think we're gonna look back at it and the way journalism works for sport.
hmm
So much blogging, so much the way we reviewed tournament, like our first African team to make a semi-final.
yeah,
So many of the Middle Eastern teams doing very well and Asian teams doing very well.
exactly.
So I think overall great tournament. So you can't wait. Like this is what World Cups make us feel like. We can't wait for the next one,
Yeah,
4 years time.
exactly.
Um, moving on, like the only thing that comes close to the impact of the big Kahuna is combination. Women's sport this year, team sport
Yeah,
specifically. So much happening, so much. I think average punter, people who I think a lot of it we have to get uh, COVID where everybody sat at home with nothing to do but watch sport and
yeah,
content. And I think people got used to watching a lot of women's team sport. Like, okay, there's a few teams here that have always had a following, but women's team sports that have really improved in coverage and people supporting them. We had the Cricket World Cup, won by
yep.
the mighty Australians again.
Again, yes,
Cricket ODI World Cup. And this thing is continuing on with so much attention on women's sport. We're
yeah,
currently going through the first ever under 19s Women's Cricket World Cup, which already had a few upsets, great performances by team, and still going on. Um, then and it's going to be followed on by another T20 Women's World Cup.
yeah, yeah,
We had the Rugby League World Cup, which also threw up some incredible upsets
yeah, yeah,
and great performances. And then we had the two big ones. We had the Women's Euros,
yeah.
won by the Lionesses, and the Rugby World Cup, because the Rugby World Cup doesn't gender its tournaments.
No,
2021 Rugby World Cup, because it was supposed to be played
yeah,
last year in New Zealand, but it's played now. Won by the Black Ferns and won by the Lionesses. Two, these are for us big moments as well. Both of these things,
Yeah.
as separate from the whole attention to women's sport, it's gonna continue. The effects, I think, the fact that we're seeing things like currently the WIPL
Yeah.
getting $150 million for their TV rights, it's incredible.
That is incredible.
Some of those WIPL teams are getting bought for more than the IPL teams were bought for back in the day.
Yeah, that's a good point,
So
actually. You're
that
right.
shows you how much the sport of cricket has moved on, and what we all knew was going to happen if if the IPL finally did a women's tournament, it would make money and it would do well. And I think credit to the BCCI, they have done it properly. They managed to get a good TV deal.
Yeah.
They've, instead of linking them to the franchises and giving the current franchise owners the opportunity to, buy into the teams, they went, nope, it's going to be its own thing. It's a separate identity, and we go on from there. It'll be interesting to see if that was the right play, but I think it feels like the right play.
It does feel like the right play to me as well. Like, it does just felt like if it just got tacked on. I mean, the New Zealand Super Smash and the Big Bash have women's teams as well, but that's part of the same ones, right? And so it sort of feels like it's the double hitter, but always sort of feels like tacked on a bit. Like, oh yeah, we gave women's sports. Well, going no, it's its own thing, with its own window and everything. It's just like, yeah, it's gonna be good.
To be fair, Super Smash and Big Bash, Super Smash is not a franchise tournament.
No. It's a provincial one, so it makes sense.
Teams, so that's okay, and that makes sense. And these women's teams have been around forever, so it makes sense.
Yeah.
Not we've been playing women's cricket in New Zealand forever, so that's not.
I think more it's just that
the Big Bash. I think it improved. The women's Big Bash improved, and I think became a bigger thing than the men's Big Bash now because it's separated. Like they would, okay, we're run by our. Sure, we're still the same name franchises, but we run our tournaments at different times, and
that's
we do
the thing that sort of worked well there. Like the New Zealand one, because it's always the same. It's like they had Otago versus Central men's and women's. Today in Otago, it was the same teams playing the same place at the same time.
Yeah.
Like double headers all the time. Which
I understand why they do that in New Zealand, because getting cricket crowds is hard enough,
and just getting the teams around as well.
Games,
like
and getting the domestic, especially for domestic games.
Yeah.
As great a tournament as Super Smash is, I think it's a great. It's really entertaining, really good, both the men's and women's.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say that the tournament itself is bad or there's not reasons why it's happening. I was just thinking from the IPL point of view, from the WIPL, that they went the same model of just either attacking, the games were the same franchises and just there were double headers all the time, and it was just then it would sort of cheapen's not the right word, but it would sort of just get too merged in and it might get lost. Or if it does its own thing with its own franchises, own structure, then it's two separate things, and it won't get lost in it. It can still be compared, and it still will be compared. That's just how
I think the time
work,
for double headers in big tournaments is gone, right? I think the first two women's World Cup, T20 World Cups that were played alongside the men's ones, that was good. It gave the sport much needed, attention, and especially like when the women's team won the West Indies women's team won the the T20 World Cup, and then right after that game, the men's team were inspired. They were cheering them on at the sidelines, and then they came out and then won the most unforgettable T20 World Cup final ever with the Carlos Brathwaite. Remember that name?
Remember the name.
Remember the name finals, which that was historic, but we don't need to do that at the T20 World Cup anymore. I don't think. The women stand up on their own. People happy to go to their games. Even people like my dad, who's an avid cricket follower, is just like, women's cricket is just cricket. It's good to watch.
Yeah.
And he actually likes a lot more of women's cricket before because it was a more technical game. There was a lot more running around for singles, manipulating the field because there wasn't as much of a power game. It will come in women's sport.
Oh, 100% will come. I was going to say, my dad likes the women's Super Smash better than the men's Super Smash. He'll actually watch a game of the women's game over the men's game. Just for that pure reason. Like, it's actually a more technical game. It has, it's not just who can hit the ball, just swing the bat hit it as hard as you can, and
There is room for finesse in the women's game. It makes things like ring fielders important because you're doing chip shots and
yeah,
trying to manipulate the field for singles. Whereas like the men's game, we know like the meta, quote unquote, is that they have to be at the best fielders have to be at the boundary.
yeah,
And you are constantly trying to do, you're very few players are able to rotate the strike very, very well and hit the AB de Villiers, like you're hitting singles all around the ground. You don't do dot balls, you just do singles and boundaries. Like that's very few players, because like there's him and Prithvi Shaw, basically, two players.
I was going to say the epitome of that for me is the debate about Kane Williamson not playing T20s in New Zealand, him being the best New Zealand batsman, pretty much of all time, and we have a debate about, and a fairly solid reasoning for him not playing T20s, and it's like to me that's an example of where the men's meta is, right? It has to be, it's hit big or go home. There is no in betweens.
Forget Kane Williamson, Joe Root, who is arguably a better T20 player than Kane Williamson, nobody even debates that he shouldn't be in the T20. Yeah. And he's arguably the best cricket batsman in the last 2 years.
Yeah, that's a good point. Joe Root's the best example of it. But they're the best cricket batsman right now, and no, he doesn't play T20s, and nobody thinks he should.
Yes. So the sport, it's very much a different meta for the men's game. So I think the women's game does benefit from that. Now, specifically moving on to the Black Ferns, I think that it's like very much a coming of age tournament for them. They've been very dominant in the game. I remember the first time the Black Ferns won the Rugby World Cup when I was still in high school. I think 1998.
Something like that. Well, they technically had some before. I think 98 was the first official Rugby World Cup that was sanctioned by International Rugby. Though they went back, and I think they've since gone back, and there was a 90, there might have been a 92 one or a 93 one, and then it was the 98 one. Like there was a weird timing on it. There's one before that now has been, that wasn't official at the time, but now has been like retconned and like actually that's the official first one. But that was still won by New Zealand anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, until New Zealand won that Rugby World Cup, I think the most successful team internationally were the USA at women's rugby.
Yeah, well, that's yes, but there was women's rugby at Olympics and stuff earlier, I think. No, I'm thinking something else. But
it's only been a rugby.
Oh yes,
before the 2016 Olympics, I think rugby.
No, it wasn't. That was something else I was thinking of, but there was something else that they had amateur tournaments.
And that was also won by the USA.
Yeah.
They were technically Olympic champions.
Yes, that's right.
And but the Black Ferns have basically carved out their own identity. Like when they won the Rugby World Cup in 1998, they weren't even called the Black Ferns. They were the New Zealand women's rugby team.
Yeah. I think
and we didn't have they didn't have a place. Like the most popular women's sports team in New Zealand were probably the Silver Ferns, and they probably still are. Like I still really like the Silver Ferns and follow their. But I think the Black Ferns have carved. Like rugby purists now really like watching the Black Ferns.
I think the important thing is that the Black Ferns have carved their own space out. Unique to the All Blacks. Like it's not just the women's All Blacks. Like that's the women's team. They're like the All Blacks, but they're women. Like no, they're the Black Ferns now.
Yeah. They're not the quote unquote the Lady All Blacks or something like that. They're their own entity, and I think they have been for a while. But I think this is the first World Cup where the New Zealand public got to see it and experience it and embraced it.
Well, the important thing is it's the first World Cup down our end of the world, right? And all the other ones have been in Northern Hemisphere, Europe.
Yes.
So it has been, New Zealand, it wasn't here on our back door, wasn't in our face, wasn't in our time, so it sort of got ignored and didn't, the Black Ferns won. The Black Ferns won. Oh, good for them.
Yes.
But now we got to see it. And more importantly, got to see Black Ferns rugby up close, and their own unique styles, and their own unique philosophies, and their own unique playing,
Yeah.
like who they are as characters as well. And so that
Yeah.
they were.
I think also like the fact that there were two very different philosophies in that final. That England team,
Yeah.
the Roses and the Black Ferns had very different philosophies, and the Roses seemed to have a lot of the same philosophy as the English rugby team. Strong forward line, battering
It's
when the English team want to play at their best.
Yeah, it is very much. I thought the Roses were very much the English team, like dialed up to 11. The whole forward play, just like we're just going to really double down on our forward play, and it's really good.
Absolutely.
Just really
And
pushing it.
I think the reason the All Black Ferns are different from the All Blacks, they're not playing KBA, where you keep the ball alive, at all costs, and they're not obsessed with space the way All Blacks are, and the whole what phase of play are you in, where do you need to move. Their play a very, very well, and I don't mean this as an insult, like a very, very well developed version of play, like how we would play a rugby game, and like as in the paddock, and fun. Like
Yes.
there's a lot of joy in that game. Like they're doing stuff because they want to and they enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that is, and you listen to them, and I've been reading the Ruby 2 book. But that is the underpinnings of the Black Ferns, is go out there and play with joy. I think that's the best way to describe them. And you say it's a very well defined and very well practiced and very well drilled version of that. But it is very much them looking at what are our strengths, what do we enjoy doing if we're out in the field, how do we develop a game plan around that wins, and then they drill through that so that whoever steps onto the field, they know what they need to do, because it's the thing that comes natural to them and the thing that they can express themselves with. So that that's why it comes out the way it does, because they just are all out there, and that means they can play as a team. And the crazy thing is, as you say, the Black Ferns are perhaps one of the most dominant teams of women's rugby in terms of historical. But they were, for this tournament, were the underdogs. And
they were the underdogs, and I think also like the Black Ferns seem to still have room for individuality in that team.
Yeah.
With the team play as well. Like the All Blacks are very much a machine. You fit in the cog of that machine.
Exactly.
Wow.
And I think that's the other thing that people sort of grabbed hold of with the Black Ferns, is that, as you say, they're all individuals, they're all their own people, they're playing their football, as opposed to the All Blacks, which is very much machine. There is the All Blacks way, and you need to fit into that. And no matter how you actually play it at Super Rugby or provincial level or whatever, doesn't matter. You're in the All Blacks team. This is your role. This is how you're playing. This is the bit you're doing. And there are variations on those roles so that they can fit and change. And that normally is the year or two after a World Cup. And that's when the All Blacks are rebuilding or whatever, because some people have retired, and that's them. Really, it's the All Blacks figuring out what the new cogs in the machine need to be. Like, do we need to change any of these? Do we have a new cog that fits straight into this, or do we need to retinker everything? That's always a little bit of the, like last year for them, not quite working. It's them returning the machine, but it'll come back. But the Black Ferns are not a machine. As you say, you feel the personalities, you feel the players, and they just are out there.
It's a homemade recipe. You feel like every time you make it, it's slightly different than before. Like, exactly. I know what the All Blacks are going to do, roughly, personnel every time they go out to play. I don't realistically know what the Black Ferns are going to do every time. I have an idea.
Yeah.
But, it'll taste different every time.
I think the difference... Yeah, as I say, I think with the All Blacks, you know what's going to happen, as you say. It's how well are they going to perform, and that's what you're watching, is like, you know exactly what each player should be doing. And you sort of... The faults are where you can see them not doing that thing. The Black Ferns, you don't know what each player's going to do, but you know what the result is. You know what you say, you know what they're making. You know what the end result's going to be, but it's going to be different. The recipe's going to be slightly different. That ingredient, or they might throw a pinch of one spice in just for the fun of it and something else. And so watching it unfold is the joy, right? You know vaguely what they you know what the recipe is for, therefore what the outcome will basically look and taste like. But
Yeah.
the method of getting there and the exact outcome is unknown, and it's a joy to watch it unfold.
Yeah, and I think that's why there's a room for individuality. Like sometimes you just can play around with the ingredients a little bit.
Exactly.
Like you wouldn't like if using this recipe analogy, the All Blacks would be like, a restaurant, like either a chain or a high-end restaurant where
Yeah.
it tastes the same every time. Otherwise, you'll be disappointed. Like, you went to have this meal.
It's
You
a
don't
Michelin.
want to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a Michelin style restaurant where the Michelin, it needs to taste the same each time.
Or even not a Michelin star, even if you went to your local restaurant, like your local like Thai takeaway, or if you went there and the food tasted radically different or even slightly different, you'd be like, it wasn't good this time, right? Like their goal is to give you a flavor that's the same every time and that you like.
Yeah. My analogy was going to go further with the Black Ferns were like the Michelin star chef's home, where they go back and they just, have a bit of fun throwing shit. Still the same high quality output, but it could be radically different. It may not taste, it may taste different, and they may try a new thing and be like, this is where we're trying, kind of sort things out. And actually, we got this new thing over here. Let's chuck that in and see how that works.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes them fun to watch, even for like non-purists like me and who are not that big followers of rugby. But I definitely like enjoyed watching them play and following them.
That was definitely good.
In the same vein, I think we go to our next bit, the lionesses. Now, I think the lionesses have been big for a while. They've finally managed to win a national trophy for England after so long.
Yeah.
It finally came home.
Yeah, something came home.
Something came home. It's great to see them celebrate. Once again, they've got their own identity that's very different to the England men's team. And I think like 2021, with the Euros, the men's team went very far, but like the after effects of the finals left a very sour taste in everybody's mouth. And I think the Lionesses, given like the tumultuous things going on in the UK at the moment, like politically, like the uncertainty politically, and we had big moments like the Queen passed away, and all these other things. Lionesses were like this big bright spot in their summer, like that everybody united the whole country, like gave everybody a lift. And I think it's like the first time a women's team has done that for a country. Like obviously the Black Ferns did it here a few months later, but just it's not you don't usually see when a country has a really prominent men's team in a code. It's very difficult for the women's team to do find their space in that cultural zeitgeist and where they belong. And I think the Lionesses, they have been slowly building up that way, and it's come to fruition. Like all their hard work, like if you follow women's sport, and obviously it's been railing forever about things like how Manchester United didn't have a women's team for years until they decided to have one and then bought everybody else's good players, which is what the opposite of what they do for the men's team. But it's all worked really well for the team. I think they've deserved all their plaudits, all their flowers, and I think it was a feel-good moment for everyone, I think, not just people in England.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like, it was just one of those moments in time where it just all sort of condensed, I guess.
Now, speaking of England, the next two things on our calendar are going to be talking about England and cricket, because they have had a year.
Yes.
But I'm going to credit this to two Kiwis from the mainland, obviously, because that's where all the good ideas in cricket come from, the mainland, right?
Yes.
Two boys from the South Island, Baz McCullum and Ben Stokes.
Yeah.
that's a match made in heaven, I think. Was very wary of Ben Stokes becoming England captain. Like, this has been previous issues when England have had a bad spell. They go and take the team's talisman, who happens to be an all-rounder. So when Ian Botham was captain, he had a terrible run.
Mm.
Um, like people forget that what we now call the Botham's Ashes back in 1981, he was the captain for the first two tests, which they lost horribly, and he played horribly. And then they brought back Mike Brearley, who apparently, like, was the first thing he came in was mock Botham all the time to inspire him to start playing and forcing him to bowl and everything. And then he obviously played the two matches, which were incredible, and helped them win the Ashes back 3-2. So, and then, but he wasn't captain. Like, it was he had hit rock bottom being captain. And Andrew Flintoff, who was the talisman of the team that won the 2005 Ashes, got made captain after Michael Vaughan retired through injuries. And he won a series in India. Credit to him for doing that. But then, things went badly for him, and then they lost the Ashes 5-0, and he had a pillow incident. It all went horribly. And it ended in... And he, it's just a lot of work for an all-rounder talisman person to also be the captain of the team.
Yeah.
And Ben Stokes, it had that written, I felt like, but, he completely disproved it with, I think, the right coach. I think Brendan McCullum's, freed everybody to play their game. Everybody's opinion of Bazball is pretty much attack, but I think we have to remember Brendan McCullum's the guy who brought in BJ Watling into the team because he thought he was one of his favorite players, and he liked BJ's game, which is to be defensive and lock it out and fight. And Brendan McCullum also told Neil Wagner to just keep bowling bouncers for overs after over, and it worked. And it was a strategy, and he loves to attack. That's what he does. But he wants you to play to your strength, what works for you, and be free. Like, don't.
Free.
If your game is to block out every ball and frustrate the opposition into giving you loose deliveries, which you cash in on, because you feel like you back your mental strength over theirs, then he will back you to do that. He's not gonna get he's not gonna put you out to dry if you get a few low scores here and there where you're eating up a lot of deliveries. No, and I feel like it's freer for him to do that in test match cricket.
Yeah, no, 100%. And saying that Bazball, Brendan McCullum's philosophy is attack, is missing the point. It is, as you say, it's about playing to your strengths and feeling free to do that. Like, feeling free to play your game. And it is a little bit like, bringing it back to the Black Ferns, the same thing, which is we're not going to have a rigid recipe for this. We all know what we want to do. Let us go out there and find the best way to get that result, given the people we have on the field. And everybody should feel free to play to the best of their ability to achieve that goal.
Yeah. I think a lot of people have said things like, oh, let's see how they do in Australia with this method, or how they do against India and, rolling, in those dust balls. Let me point out, they were not winning those games when they weren't playing Bazball.
Exactly.
And they were losing games at home to New Zealand.
Exactly.
And they smashed New Zealand with Bazball. A year later, New Zealand was spending... And there are extenuating circumstances. I think New Zealand did some very bad tactics instead of going, changing into a more one-day style field to counter Bazball, and obviously Kyle Jamieson getting injured. Those were all, extenuating circumstances. But they won fair and square. No. And they won by playing their game, and I think that's the big thing. I think England have been the best white ball team since 2018, at least, in my opinion.
Yeah.
He came very close in the Champions Trophy 2018. They just lost to Pakistan, who then went on to win that trophy. 2019, they famously or infamously beat him. And the best cricket match of all time that I've ever watched in my life. I wasn't there when they played the first tied test or the second tied test, but this is surely up there.
Yeah. I think I still refute the concept of them beating us, but yes, they did win.
Yes. Look, you and I agree why the rules had to be the way they were.
Yeah, no,
Not a. Yeah. We understand why the rules are the way they are. There's no if we take our black caps off, those are fair enough rules.
Yeah, you have to have some way of separating out them. If that's the rules to begin with, as we said, I think at the time, those are the rules.
How they deal with rolling super overs, it's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, super overs are It was an incredible match, and I don't think I couldn't sleep for almost a day and a half after that game.
Yeah.
Because it was living in my head rent free.
Yeah.
The other part is the World Cup in 2021. They were the best team. We just happened to beat them in the semi-final.
Yeah.
Because they batted first. Because they lost the toss.
Exactly. 2021 T20 World Cup is very much a tournament of win the toss.
Who won the toss?
Who won the toss? If you win the toss, bat second, you're going to win. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And the 2022 World Cup, they won because they were better than every other team, I think.
Yeah.
And showed it in the semis. They smashed the semis and they smashed the finals.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I think that really does underpin their strengths. They just were clearly a lot better.
And they did it without players like Bairstow, Stokes, who were injured, and they did it with Alex Curran, who was the fourth choice bowler. They didn't have Reece Topley, they didn't have Tymal Mills, they didn't have Jofra Archer, and they still were head and shoulders better than everybody else. They lost to Ireland, yes. You're gonna lose T20 games. That is the nature of the game.
There is a lot more random number generator impacts on that, where things can sort of just conspire against you.
Yes, but they rightfully won that tournament quite easily. And they're currently the only team to have hold both ODI and T20 World Cups, and I think deservedly so. And ODIs, they've basically, this is why they're so good at Bazball. They've basically they're the team that goes at 5.5 runs and over between the overs 10 and 30.
Yeah.
Right? And everybody else treats those as a bit of a ceasefire. It becomes a phony war.
Yeah.
And they wait for the death to start. And not every team has that hitting power that the English team have, by the way.
Yeah.
So they do, and this is why they can do that in Test match cricket. I think everybody going Bazball's going to be. Oh no, who else has England's level of white ball hitting skills that they've shown? Maybe India.
Yeah.
Other than them, who does? Not New Zealand, not Pakistan, not Australia, not South Africa.
No.
New Zealand have a good ODI batting lineup, I think, and they can compete with. I think if it's a very good batting pitch, I think New Zealand can be competitive against a team like India and Australia. But I think if it's a very good batting pitch, England beats everybody.
Yeah.
They don't. Their batting lineup is just too strong. If it's only in a match like that 2019 World Cup final where 240 was a good score.
Yeah.
Because the ball was moving enough and you were getting enough movement off the pitch, and you could develop pressure from that. It was but if it's a flat pitch, even bounce, not much movement, England are gonna pwn you.
Pretty much, yeah.
And if you don't have any leg spinners, England are gonna pwn you.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens after. They're not going to qualify for the Cricket World Cup Test World Championship final this year, but we shall see if what happens. Because South Africa getting a draw in that final game against Australia means that they are not guaranteed to make the final now, and if India sweep them and Sri Lanka manage to beat South Africa at home, I believe, then it'll be an India-Sri Lanka final. How incredible will that be for the Sri Lankan test team?
That is crazy. It really is.
But we'll go a bit further into that because that's going to come in the next few months. It's going to be an interesting few months of cricket. But so basically, Bazball, England, two things. I think they're still going to continue. Bazball is going to continue dominating the game, and I think England's white ball dominance is going to continue. They're my favorites to win the 2023 World Cup in India.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think all that we talked about there is why. So yeah, England's white ball dominance is almost assured. So being a nice Black Caps supporter, I hope that we can do better than expected.
I think a tournament in India suits New Zealand, I think, because New Zealand are pretty good in Indian conditions, as they've shown.
Yeah.
Team are pretty good against spin bowling, and India are the best spin bowling lineup in the world at the moment. So, and New Zealand are okay against them. So.
Yeah. No, I think New Zealand will do reasonably well, but yes, I do expect England to also be doing extremely well. And you say. And Bazball, I see, is just continuing to shape Test cricket. Even though I see Brendan McCullum doesn't actually like the term Bazball, but well, you may have to put up with this.
You may just have to put up with it. Yeah. Staying on with cricket, we're gonna go into the first country to ever play international cricket, the USA.
Yes.
Now, there have been lots of things moving around. Things have been threatening for years for there to be a big cricket tournament in the US. There's so many people. Every single World Cup since the 99 World Cup onwards, the most number of tickets sold to overseas attendees were from the USA.
All right.
So after the host countries, the biggest visiting contingent were all from America, which, when you think about it, shouldn't be surprising.
No.
And they have incredible viewing numbers for cricket. One of the reasons why the CPL do as well as they do, is because of their good, time zones for U.S. audience. So they have basically come up with their T20 franchise league, Major League Cricket and Minor League Cricket. Minor League Cricket has just finished their first tournament.
Second tournament.
Tournament? Yes. And Major League Cricket got delayed, and but they are about to start their first tournament this year. But it's been going on for ages. They've managed to get a bunch of very high-profile players, including players like Corey Anderson.
Oh yeah, no, I heard that too. Yes.
And the teams are going to play all their games in Grand Prairie Stadium in Texas near Dallas, starting in July, and it'll slowly go from there. It's going to be things are going to change in America when it comes to cricket. Cricket's already a very popular sport there, despite what people may think. I mean, we're talking about people investing like Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, Ross Perot Jr., the son of the founder of EDS, and I'm sure EDS, which is owned by HP now, probably have know how popular cricket is because of the sheer number of people from the subcontinent who work in
Yeah.
work in their company, and the currently they've got 6 teams based in Atlanta, Chicago, Los Angeles, New Jersey, New York, and I think San Francisco.
Yeah. I think so.
So we'll see how it works out. Sorry, no, the inaugural. The inaugural teams are going to be based in Dallas, Washington D.C., Los Angeles, New York, San Fran, and Seattle.
Yeah.
So it's all like either tech hubs or places where there's a lot of like subcontinent immigrants. So it makes sense.
Yeah.
And grow from there. And it's already the second biggest tournament in terms of TV rights deal that they've managed to secure. And the fact that they have a minor league, which is going to be the feeder league feeding into this, that's just going to grow the game incredibly.
Yeah, no, that's pretty. It's a pretty cool concept they've got going there.
Yeah, and the minor league, it's now a possibility for people of West Indian subcontinent heritage, and then eventually like not people outside these heritages who are like can play who play cricket can go play in because now colleges have the NCAA have a cricket tournament which has been funded by Shivnarine Chandapal amongst other people, and then it's from there you move on to like a minor league system and then go into the major league. I think it's really well thought out. I think it fits the American sporting space as well, and I think we are probably gonna see a revolution with cricket. If we're gonna have 2 hubs, like the BCCI rules the cricketing world, but if the USA becomes a major player in cricket, that's where the major spanner in the works are coming from, the USA.
Yeah.
From this, if this league becomes a big thing, and even if the USA never become a test playing country, they will be a big player if they're attracting players to come in with lots of money and
Yeah, exactly.
And it's an alternate to playing for the IPL. Then it's interesting times coming ahead for cricket, and if Major League Cricket succeeds, and I think it will, because the people involved are all very incredibly smart business people who have been very successful. So yeah, we will see that coming. Now, moving on, the last cricket-related thing that we think, because it's also related. It's going to relate to the next theme, which is ownership. So speaking of successful people who own sports franchises, the Glazer family have bought a cricket team.
Wow.
So this is a bit of a saga. They kind of went to try and buy an IPL franchise when the expansion teams, the Lucknow Super Giants and the Gujarat Lions were founded.
Right.
It's an interesting thing. It was embarrassing for them in the end because they put in the lowest bid. Like they specifically just went in with the advice of finance people because my understanding is Avram Glazier just told Joel to go buy a cricket team.
All right.
He went there and he was just following the advice of the financiers, like, yep, this is the right price, and they had the lowest bid.
Oh,
so that was a bit embarrassing. And also, they were the only people to bid more for the Lucknow franchise than they bid for the Gujarat franchise, which, Gujarat is Ahmedabad, one of the biggest cities in India. Lucknow is a big city. Obviously, we're talking about Indian cities here, but it doesn't have anywhere near the big cultural reach and financial reach that Ahmedabad does.
Right. Yeah.
So the two franchises they failed to buy those 2 franchises. I'm surprised they didn't try to buy a women's team because that would have been their next thing, but instead they bought a team in the UAE Super League.
Yeah.
Now that's an unsanctioned league technically because the UAE are not a test-playing country, and their T20 tournaments doesn't count in T20 stats, whatever that means, because technically the ICC don't are not the ones who collect the stats anyway. It's the Association of Cricket Statisticians and record keepers, and if they decide to count it, they will.
Yeah.
And ain't nothing much the ICC can say about it, because they don't look at sanctions, whether it's a sanctioned league or not. They look at whether or not the quality of the competition is comparable.
Yeah, yeah.
And boy, is it comparable, because this current window we have the BBL, the South African T20 league, and the UAE leagues all being played, and the UAE leagues are the leagues that are paying the most. So obviously it's going to attract the best players.
Yeah.
Because that's how it works. Like, David Warner almost went to play in the UAE because the BBL in the end, Cricket Australia had to make a deal to let them stay and play. The way it's with the UAE league, and to be quite fair to the Glaziers, who are people I have absolutely pillaged before, Desert Vipers are doing pretty well in the in the league at the moment. So they're captained by Colin Munro, coached by James Foster. Very decent team, and they're currently, I believe, top of the tournament. So yeah, good on them. They might win the inaugural league. The current it's only a matter of time before the UAE league does get the sanctioning, because three of the franchises are owned by IPL owners. So
yeah,
that tells you all you need to know. Oh, actually, 4 of them, because Mumbai Indians also have a franchise in there.
All right, so there you go.
Oh no, I thought the Giants team, the Gulf Giants, were owned by the people who own the Lucknow Giants, but no, they're not. So it's only the 3. But the 3 IPL owners own franchises there. They're gonna get the record holders are gonna keep it up, and we're talking about the Knight Riders and Mumbai Indians, who are like the two of the most successful team, franchises in the IPL.
Yeah, exactly.
The amongst the 2 most successful. Then so with them owning a franchise as well in cricket, and they're showing interest. If American owners start buying into cricket franchises around the world, things in cricket are gonna change. That shift of balance of power between India and America in world cricket, we might be one day talking about a big 4 when it comes to cricket.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how soon it'll be before the Americans have a super competitive team, but they're gonna be a super important cricket country.
Yeah.
And just to remind everyone, the 2024 T20 World Cup is being hosted by the West Indies and the USA.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's going to be important, and it's going to be interesting, as you say. Saying it could be that they are one of the. You say they could be part of the new Big 4 without having a Big 4 team.
All it will take is for the United States to do. If the United States team in, let's say, the 2024, because there's 2028 Olympics is gonna have cricket.
Yeah.
The 2028 Olympics in LA is gonna have cricket. The 2032 Olympics in Brisbane is definitely gonna have cricket, and there is a rumor that cricket is gonna be at the Olympics in the Paris Games in 2024.
Oh, that'd be interesting.
If one of those Summer Olympics, the United States team happens to have a run, make the semis, or
does something. Maybe it doesn't even have to make the semis, right? It could just win a couple of games against one of the actual cricket teams. That's probably enough to propel that up a bit.
Yeah. So once the Olympic Games, the cricket at the Olympic Games is going to be a game changer. We know this.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, now I've just confirmed they've officially said that the Paris Games are not going to have it because
Yeah.
it's too late to get that in.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. That's a lot of organising very quickly to get that in.
But they are the LA Games are very, very interested in having cricket, which makes sense because the Olympics. This is how you get the subcontinent grow in the subcontinent market, right?
Exactly. And I guess with the LA Games, it may be a little bit on how well the Major League Cricket goes, right? If that is shown to be successful, which there's no reason why it won't be, then yeah, that would be a driver there for them to be like, yeah, let's include this for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And once it gets in there, like I said, especially 2028, the Olympics are being hosted in America, in LA. They'll have fans. So I feel like there's a seismic shift coming in cricket with new players coming from the United States.
Yeah.
And cricket is a sport that's possibly easier for the United States to get into and become good at, become a majorly, successful team than it is for example, football.
Yeah.
Like, I think, like the USA in rugby could, how we have the top 10 teams, the USA could easily become an 11th team.
Yes.
Maybe 11th and 12th with Japan. Like, that's very possible, like, given the way it works. But cricket is even more viable in America commercially than rugby is.
Yeah. No, I can see how it's very commercially viable in America for cricket.
Now, just to be clear, when we go, this topic of the Glaziers moves on to our next topic, the Americans and owning sports teams in English football. That's not a new thing, but they're all selling their teams.
Yeah.
So apart from Todd Bowley and the group that owned Chelsea, they have obviously bought. Now I think we have to say there are extenuating circumstances with the fact that the war in Ukraine led up to this.
Yeah.
The fact that a club like Chelsea got on the market. Roman Abramovich would not have sold Chelsea if he did not.
If he wasn't forced to, basically.
If he wasn't forced to. And let's just say, realistically, Chelsea is not intended primarily as a profit-making venture under the ownership of Roman Abramovich. In many ways, it was possibly a not money laundering, but at least a money storing venture. So Roman Abramovich just didn't need it to be losing heaps of money, but it's a place for him to convert his quote-unquote black money into white money, or Russian money into money stored outside Russia legally.
Yeah. I mean, that was always the money laundering thing was always the allegations thrown around early on, but I think it's more what you're saying there at the end there, which is not so much black money turning to white, but Russian money turning to not Russian money. Which I think for him was more important. It was just how he got his money out of Russia.
Exactly. And the second thing is, let's be honest, Chelsea Football Club under Abramovich was the most successful sports washing enterprise in the history of sports washing. Like, it legitimized Russian business in the West.
It really did, yeah.
Like, it opened doors for people to come in, not just buy sports teams, but to invest in companies and, like, open up startups and all these other things.
Yeah. I mean, as you say, it started off with a lot of, bad press and bad, not bad press, but bad rumors around. Not bad press is wrong. Bad rumors around it. Like a lot of people making, fans making fun of it and all the rest, and saying, but it quickly,
but
I think.
I remember when Roman Abramovich bought Chelsea, like literally financiers were like, well, he's a billionaire. This is a hobby that he's playing.
Yeah. He's
bought a football team, and to be frank, if I was as rich as he was, I would do the same.
100%.
And like, yeah, I'm not. Let's be real here. So, Roman Abramovich. So Chelsea Football Club did not need to be financially making a profit the way. Like,
No.
let's be fair on Todd Bowley, and he's not being dishonest about this. He's like, look, I do care that Chelsea are successful off on the pitch. I don't, but that's purely motivated by profit. I want to make money off Chelsea,
Yeah.
and his goal, other than his goal, is probably that I own Chelsea for 10 years. It's worth about, let's say he's bought it for 5 billion. It's worth about maybe 8 to 10 billion, and I sell it for that. It's worth 8 billion. I sell it for 10 billion. I make 5 billion. You
Yeah,
know, in 10 years. That's my goal.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like, and that's maybe his thing. He's not potentially. He's not looking to stay at Chelsea. As successful as Chelsea might be, it's not recovering $5 billion of investment like that.
No,
quickly.
no.
Unless there's a Super League, then the game changes.
It does change a bit, yes.
Because, if you're making 900 to $1 billion a season in, like, revenue, then, okay, you can recover your 5 billion, the mere 5 billion that you've paid to.
Yeah.
No, this is not a net, this is revenue, so obviously that's not the net.
No, but yeah, still.
Then it's worthwhile to buy something for. This is why NFL franchises go for 5 to 6 billion, because they, from TV rights alone, they get like 900 million a year,
Yeah.
900 to a billion a year. Okay, on top of that, whatever merch they can sell and all this other stuff, marketing, and contracts and other things, image rights, I'll make more money, so it's worthwhile.
Yeah.
But Premier League football clubs like Chelsea are potentially able to do that, maybe, but it's not quite there yet. And yeah, it's so be interesting to see what he's planning to do with Chelsea. But the flip side of what tells you, like, this is the thing. We had all these things about that they were going to introduce legislation to prevent clubs from ever forming a Super League. And that's kind of died down. Nothing's come from that. We know that there's a bunch of... we know that Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Juve insist the Super League will happen. They're going to make it happen.
Yeah.
AC Milan and Inter Milan have basically washed their hands of it, I think. They're no longer interested.
Yeah.
My understanding was that when the six non-English teams were like, let's pull the lever, and they approached the English teams, they didn't think the Premier League teams would agree. But all it took is for one Premier League side to go, yep. I think it was probably Manchester United.
Yeah.
And then everybody else had to go, yep, we can't be left behind.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I think Chelsea and Manchester City were very much, if it's gonna happen, fine. But we're reluctantly going because we don't want to be left behind in a potential Super League. Whereas the other four American-owned franchises, Spurs, Arsenal, Chelsea, and Spurs, Arsenal, Manchester United, and Liverpool, were all like, yep, sounds good.
Yeah.
A league with no relegation? Excellent.
Yeah. I mean, it sort of showed at the time, right? It was, those other ones that sort of pushed along, and then once, the pressure came on, it was like the City and Chelsea that were pulling back first, and then it was suddenly all the rest sort of had to pull out as well, because they couldn't be seen not to be doing it. So
yeah, and so the fact that the Liverpool owners and the Manchester United owners both are selling, I don't think it's a coincidence. I think they believe it will be impossible for English clubs to join the Super League, and I think probably England is not part of the EU anymore, and quite frankly, at the end of the day, if it becomes that if it goes that far, I can actually see the monarch going, yep, royal privilege, fuck you bitches. which prime minister is gonna force me to abdicate because I'm keeping football pure? Come on.
Come on. Yeah, bring it. Let's see how this goes for you.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think the monarch should be put in this position, by the way.
No.
And I think any monarch of the United Kingdom, and obviously they are also our monarch, would feel very, very reluctant to do this.
It probably be heading towards a constitutional crisis, really. Like,
No, constitutional, he's allowed to.
I know he's allowed to, but
They're allowed to.
that's why it'll be a crisis. Because they'll be allowed
and
to.
If the minister agrees, then it's not a constitutional crisis.
But that's what I mean.
The parliament agrees with him.
Yeah, if he agrees with it, it's fine. But it'll be heading towards that if it was somewhere.
Not.
Yeah.
Because people with money will go, but it's not legal. There are codes of law. The king can't just say blah, and parliament can't just say blah.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough. Like, you and I don't want to live in a country where technically the governor general or the prime minister can go, yeah, rules, schmools. No matter what the issue is.
I mean,
right? Like,
not to get into too much of a political discussion, but technically we do live in a country where that can happen. It's just a bit more of a rigmarole.
The Minister of New Zealand doesn't even have checks and balances.
They can just do what they want.
The Supreme Court can go, that's illegal, and the Prime Minister goes, that's nice.
The Prime Minister... Well, no, the Prime Minister goes, oh, you say that's legal, right? One moment, please. Just 1 moment. Next day. Okay, under urgency, we passed this law, which said that what the Supreme Court said was illegal was actually legal, and was always legal. And they're just full of rubbish. So, sorry, Supreme Court, you're full of rubbish.
Basically, as I said, Pat, nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll figure it out now.
Yeah.
Thanks, And there's no checks and balances in New Zealand. Technically, England has checks and balances with the Commons and the Lords and the monarch, But at the end of the day, even if all three of those bodies, you lived in a country where the Prime Minister and the King goes, rules schmools, that you don't want that.
No, you don't want that.
For whatever reason, they might be using that rule. Very extenuating circumstances, would that be okay? We're being invaded.
Yeah.
Sort of thing. But, yeah. So that's Americans selling and Americans buying, but the wider thing here is, I think the Glaziers and the owners of Liverpool have basically realized that their model for making money while owning the club, which was probably the Super League, is not viable. And I don't think they believe an English team can go. But does Todd Bowley believe that he could join the Super League? I'm like, okay, let's be fair to Todd Bowley. If it's a case of 4 other English teams have said yes, and he's like, I don't want to be left behind, I'm not gonna blame Todd Bowley for that.
No.
That's what Sheikh Mansour had to do with City, basically.
Yeah. I mean, that is the case, right? If others are going, then you sort of have to go. It's not a lot of options left.
But but is he one of those people, do you think, that would push the let's be a Malcolm Glazer type going, yep, let's push it, let's go? I mean, if he moves to the Super League, Chelsea are no longer called Chelsea because the pitch owners will tell him to fuck right off.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I think Chelsea were going to go into the Super League being called, West London Dragons or something like that. They weren't allowed to keep the crest or keep the name.
Oh dear.
Or play in Stamford Bridge.
Yeah. No, I think Bowley's brought Chelsea knowing these things, and so I would think it'd be unlikely he'd be one of the ones pushing to get it to work. It wouldn't take a lot of pushing or prodding once other teams started jumping on board for him to get on board, and he probably wouldn't be as quick getting off board if once again it became clear that pressure was mounting not to do it, or that they couldn't force their way through it in some way. But I don't think he'll be quite as quick to get on board and pushing the go button. But we'll wait for others to join before he starts. And he just won't. Like Chelsea under Abramovich the first time around the Super League were very reluctant. And like City.
Yeah,
like
two members of your board resigned.
Yeah, it was extremely reluctant, and it was like, okay, we are only doing this because everybody else is doing it. I think with a Toll Bowley type Chelsea, it'll be a much more neutral one, which is, okay, we're not going to jump in, but we're
not going to
abstaining.
start it, but if it's beginning, we're going to join.
Yeah, they're going to join pretty quickly. And as I remember, the first time around, there was some discussions among the owners of those top 6 or so anyway. And Chelsea were one of the ones, and City were like, no, we shouldn't do this. But I sort of feel if those discussions happen now, Bowley would be like, either way, I'm good. So,
Yeah.
So it would be interesting, but I think you're right though that if a Super League, if it does find its way through, I don't think there'll be English teams.
I think so too. Interestingly, another American person did buy a team, which was the people who bought Bournemouth.
All right.
I can't remember his name, but he did say he thought it was a bargain because it was cheaper than buying an MLS franchise, which is true.
Yeah.
And I think he's already made more money than he would from an MLS franchise.
Wow.
So he's quite happy. I think Bournemouth, obviously, they're probably getting relegated this year. You and I both agreed with that. But they could easily come back in again. I think they're a very well-run organization and have a good setup. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. With the Premier League being as big as it is, I think it goes on to our next big thing, and this is going to be a huge conversation that kind of goes on throughout this year and maybe next year. Super League shenanigans.
Yeah.
Still going on.
It is still going on.
Madrid and Barcelona are still technically trying to get the Super League to happen. They are suing UEFA, and they might win that case.
It's looking like they won't more than they will, but yeah, they could, I guess, still.
Because their arguments for monopoly is not unfair. Like, I can disagree with why they're doing it, and I don't like it, but they're not. They're basically saying UEFA are not allowing, UEFA are a monopoly, not allowing us to do what we want. Why should we have to play in the UEFA League if UEFA sanctioned European League? Why can't we just play a normal Spanish League and do our own thing in Europe if we don't want to play in the UEFA one?
Yeah.
They should be allowed to bully us into it.
It does seem like most of the legal experts coming out and rulings and non-binding stuff so far, but that it doesn't. That UEFA is not a legal monopoly, basically. Most of the rulings so far, non-binding, have been that the Super League is wrong.
Yeah.
But as you say, these are not the official verdicts yet.
Yeah, there's no official verdicts. Obviously, they're going to go all the way to the final Court of Appeals, the European Court. So we shall see the space when that happens, when and if that happens. In that time, so basically, since Atletico are the only Spanish club to officially leave the Super League, publicly they're very much staying quiet, but everybody says behind closed doors, Atletico is giving all their moral support to Barcelona and Real Madrid, and they're basically, as soon as you guys get the Super League up and running,
we're coming again. So.
Because Barcelona and Real Madrid are technically now suspended from the board meetings, and they don't attend anymore because they're like, yeah, you guys are biased against it. La Liga's made a bunch of rules about how TV money is shared in the league, and made it more equitable. All these reforms that Barcelona and Real Madrid were blocking for decades are getting passed through.
Go figure, eh?
So this is gonna interestingly change things. Juve is having the same thing happen in Serie A. Juve have also, as time of I think they have been deducted 15 points from the league for shenanigans when it comes to lying about FFP stuff. Now that is
Okay.
the sheer extent of what the Syria can punish them, like, because, football stuff. Juve are still in trouble, and the board are still very much in trouble because Juventus are a club that are floated on the stock exchange, and apparently they lied about the fact that their players were taking a pay cut during the COVID times.
Oh.
Which
Ooh.
basically they said publicly, they all went, yeah, we're taking a pay cut and blah, 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 to help the club stay afloat, and then they're like, oh, we'll pay you later on off the books.
All right. Oh. Geez.
And if you're on a stock exchange,
Yeah.
that is shenanigans that people are gonna check. Like, it's definitely like the fact that people authorities are investigating, because it's super difficult to get anyone convicted of a white collar crime, especially fraud and like this sort of thing. So the fact that they're actually going ahead is already problematic for the board. Like, they all resigned, so Juventus are in a bit of a shambles at the moment. And they're obviously not going to make Europe. They're going to lose more money because they're not going to be in Europe. They probably with a 15-point deduction. But if they do get done for fraud as well, they could be relegated back to Serie B.
Maybe.
It's infuriating to say that Juventus did all this in post-COVID. When you think about the fact that, like, AC Milan basically spent the last 2 seasons like looking for every piece, looking for coins in the back of the sofa, like scrounging their mates for whatever they could lend them. Selling what bits they could sell to, and then they managed to win the league last year. Like, Inter are not in that same position because they have a very rich owner, but whereas Juve were just breaking the rules.
Just straight up breaking the rules.
And they didn't even they came fourth after breaking the rules. Did they come fourth or fifth? No, they came fourth, didn't they?
Fourth, yeah.
Last season. So that already tells you, it's like I said, it's incredibly, infuriating that Juve, the people who run Juve did this. I would not shed a tear if they were to get relegated. Again, they deserve it. For blatant cheating. And the next, and it's gonna be very difficult. Like, Juventus might be forced to join the Super League if it happens, if they get into fraud, because there could be further relegations and issues with how they did things.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
As a ending note with the Super League, because we can't. How do you, assuming the English teams don't join the Super League, what do you think? What teams do you think, if you had like a 18 to 20 team Super League that could be get as much eyeballs and attention as a Super League like this, would be actually competitive with the Premier League? What would that look like? What clubs do you think? Obviously, I think, obviously Real Madrid, Barcelona,
Yeah. You got to get the Bayern Munich.
Well, I don't think any German club can join.
No, they can't. That's a good point. German clubs can't too. Ooh, this could be harder.
Just ignore clubs that will not be able to join. Like, PSG can join now that the World Cup is over. Their Qatari owners might be a bit more inclined to join the cool kids.
You'd have to get the Italian clubs and Spanish clubs, French clubs.
Napoli, let's just argument's sake, if those two go, the 2 Milan clubs go, fine, we'll hold the leader.
I don't know if you can get the Roma and Lazio along as well.
Roma and Lazio, that would give you 10 clubs. That would give you 6 clubs from Italy. You've got 3 clubs from Spain, maybe another Spanish club, maybe Espanyol. So you've got maybe Valencia. Maybe Sevilla.
Just thinking things that might have decent followings as well, so you can get eyeballs on, like, not just followings in Spain or in France or in Europe, but eyeballs outside of Europe as well. So that's what you need. If the Super League's going to succeed, it needs to have worldwide appeal, right? So you need to have football names that come from that.
Do you think the big three Portuguese clubs, Portugal's going up in the rankings as well in
Yeah.
the league? The big three in Portugal could potentially be given an offer they can't refuse.
Yeah, exactly. You need those.
Maybe Ajax.
Ajax, definitely. I think if you can get them.
Maybe PSV if you get Ajax.
Yeah,
maybe
I think.
Feyenoord as well if you can get Ajax.
Yeah, I think the three of them. You got to get a few more French clubs in there. So, Lyon, Marseille,
Monaco.
Monaco.
Would you? I think obviously, for argument's sake, we'll just say the Scottish teams can't.
Yeah.
Because the English teams can't, the Scottish teams can't. But if Scotland become independent and join the EU, maybe you get Rangers and Celtic in there as well.
Well, that would definitely give them their worldwide appeal, right?
Yes.
I mean, they're not successful clubs now, but they're definitely well-known clubs. I mean, yeah, not at Barcelona, Madrid, PSG, Juventus are giving you really big star power worldwide.
I think eventually, once the Russian football teams are allowed to compete again, maybe you'd have clubs like Zenit and maybe Spartak or CSK.
Yeah, that's other ones.
It's
some of
even the big three from Turkey, or the big
yeah,
three from Greece. There's a bunch of teams to bring in there.
Central Europe has some there.
Like there's places they would. Yes, so there's definitely teams out there you can make a pretty viable Super League. I don't know whether you'd be like at the moment. People like us, we do watch games that seem interesting to us. We'll watch a Brentford versus Brighton to be like, that could be an interesting game. Like, I want to see different philosophies in action. In the USA, I think the thing, like, in what the Premier League has done really well with La Liga, outside of El Clasico and a few other like rivalries, Espanyol, Barca, Atletico, Real, and Real Barca. Sorry, Atletico, Barca.
Yeah.
If you watch Barcelona play Eibar, hardly anyone's watching it, but people watch Wolves versus United, for example, or Brighton versus Chelsea.
Yeah.
And from that, because people watch those other teams, people will start going, oh yeah, I kind of like this Brighton team, or I kind of like this Wolves team, Brentford team, and those clubs have started getting a following as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So even like a club like Everton have a bunch of international fans who follow them and like the team, which I think La Liga, they were dominant economically for a while, but they basically concentrated the dominance in the hands of the big three.
Yeah, and really it was the big two, with the third one just sort of Atletico eventually pushed its way into it, but no.
I mean,
La Liga was always Barcelona and Real Madrid. Those were its big eggs in its big basket.
And like even now, like the Premier League is a thing that's been built up slowly. Like I don't think a Super League can come in and compete immediately. It would take a bit of time for them to develop the brand. Just think, like the Premier League has every good manager other than Carlo Ancelotti playing in it, working there now. And Carlo Ancelotti had worked there before, and a couple of seasons ago was like at Everton. Like he's the Real Madrid manager. He was managing Everton.
Yeah.
And Unai Emery took Villarreal to the semi-finals of the Champions League. He's in Aston Villa.
Yeah.
And I think Emery's a good coach. Obviously, Lopetegui's a really good coach, I think.
Yeah.
Sevilla to Europa League. And then Diego Simeone is the other big good manager who's not in the Premier League at the moment, and he's going to be because he's leaving Atletico this season. I mean, okay, Zidane's not there, but if Zidane gets another club job, if he's not going for the France job, he's probably going to work in England.
I like how you're just dissing Mourinho by not including him in the big managers not working in the EPL.
Well, Uncle Mo will come back to England at some point, right?
There's big rumours I saw today that potentially he'll be in for a third go at Chelsea come the summer. Come on, let's go.
Third time's the charm, though. I think Uncle Mo, if it was Abramovich, 100%.
100%.
I think he would come back. I think Uncle Mo, you could see him not that he's been at a club like Roma and he's played with a club that doesn't have an unlimited budget and done well with them. I could see Uncle Mo go to a club like.
No, it's from
Everton.
him.
Why not?
No, it's from him. He's the one saying. Mo's saying that he wants to come back to Chelsea. He's like, I want to come back. Apparently, Chelsea's like, no, just no. But he's like, I want to come back. And Chelsea, come on, England's good. I'll come back to Chelsea. Like, then I'll have some money. It's exactly that. Like, Roma, they don't have enough money for me. I can't buy who I want. So he's trying to wheedle his way in. But he could go somewhere else. You say Everton, West Ham as well. We'll be looking for a new manager relatively soon.
I think so. Everton have Sean Dyche just as we speak.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Very good call for Everton to get Sean Dyche.
That's a very good.
I feel bad for Super Frank.
Yeah.
I think he did really well at Chelsea his first season there. He followed the brief, and then Roman Abramovich changed the brief. On him. And then his first season at Everton, I think he did a very credible job to keep them up. I hope Super Frank gets a job at the Championship to properly do his thing.
Yeah.
But if Sean Dyche is at Everton, I mean, I think Everton has Wayne Rooney written on it eventually, right? He will eventually become their manager.
Yeah. And I mean, Uncle Mo anyway, he won't be going till the summer, so. Anybody that's looking now, that's not the ones. It'll be depend on how things go over summer.
Yeah, Uncle Mo, until you're back coaching a Champions League club, I can't consider you in the elite tier. Okay, at least a Europa League club. Okay, he's in the Europa League now.
Just to say yes.
He won the Conference League last season. You ought to be in the Champions League at least, or at least win the Europa League. Then I'll be like, yep.
Hey, he's only 1 point off Champions League currently with Roma.
Yes, I fully expect him to get Roma back into.
And he's got a game in hand as well. There you go.
Yep. He's done a very credible job at Roma, and I think he could very much. I don't know which team would be looking for a manager now in the summer.
Chelsea. I mean, really, given the way things are going at the moment.
No, I don't think Chelsea will.
Unlikely. I think we'll keep Potter.
Graham Potter, but. If he doesn't get better results next season, yes.
Yeah.
I
think he'll be given till about this time next year.
Oh, is he going to come back to Spurs? Because I think Thomas Tuchel will say no to Spurs. Because Conte's leaving Spurs, right? Like, we know this.
Yeah.
Because, come on, Spurs always get a Chelsea manager. That's just the way it is. Like Glenn Hoddle... Andres Villas-Boas,
Mourinho,
Conte. Come on. Tuchel must be like, nah. But if Tuchel goes to Spurs...
Oh dear.
And Spurs are also a club that's probably gonna be sold, so we'll see.
Maybe, yeah.
They could also... get a new manager. Speaking of which, we will go through a football thing, but just before we finish the shout out to the Southampton manager Nathan Jones. Ward Prowse as a number 10? It's genius. It was obvious. Now that you see it, you're like, it should have been obvious. That's where he should have played all along.
Yeah, well. Some of those things are, obvious in
Like
hindsight, I guess.
It's like Ten Hag playing Luke Shaw at centre back. You're like, hey, that was. Oh, okay. No, you've basically put Holland in your pocket. Okay, I see what. Yeah,
Sorted it out.
pretty much. But yes, well, I think that's all we have time for now.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for listening, and look forward to hearing, seeing you all next time.
Catch you next time.
Well, that is the end. Thanks for listening all the way through.
If you liked what you heard, we have even more. NineSixFourTwo Discord and a Buy Me a Coffee.
Pretty sure it's Buy Me a Beer.
Oh yeah, buy me a beer on buymeacoffee.com.
In both these places, you can talk to us, and we may even listen, especially if you do buy a said beer or coffee. I might still be confused.
Yes, we're easily bribed. All links are in the show notes below.
Don't forget to like and subscribe.
This is on YouTube.